What is up, awesome peeps? Brent McCluskey here with Electrified Reviews, and today we are reviewing the Electric Bike Company Model C electric bike, the OG cruiser from Electric Bike Company. We reviewed this last year. This is kind of a refresher review now that we've had it for quite some time. This is an incredibly fast electric bike, incredibly powerful, and it's just a lot of fun to ride. So let's roll the B-roll. All right, awesome peeps. So again, this is the Model C from Electric Bike Company, and this is the OG electric bike from Electric Bike Company, which sounds like a mouthful to say, EBC. We're gonna call them EBC for short. Now, when I say this is the OG, this is, I think, one of the, if not the first models that they introduced a couple years back in 2014. Of course, it's evolved a little bit over the time, and we recently reviewed the Model X electric bike. Now, this one is going to be very similar. A few key differences, we'll point those out along the way. This one starts, first of all, for $18.99, which is awesome because just a year ago or so, this thing cost about $23.99, so it's come down in price significantly in the last year or so. So for those of you who held out, it's good that you did because you're getting a pretty good deal now. Now, if this is still a little bit too expensive for you, again, we did review the Model X recently. This was our last review, and that one starts at $14.99. I'll go ahead and leave just like a little link thingy there up at the top if you want to check out that review because it is a couple $100 cheaper than this one. Now, a few things right off the bat with this bike and with this company. EBC does a lot of cool stuff that a lot of other companies just don't do, they can't do for whatever reason. First and foremost, they offer a 10-year warranty on the frame for this bike and a 5-year comprehensive warranty, which is just incredible. It's the best warranty we have ever seen for electric bikes, and it's especially weird to see it for bikes at this price point. It's because, you know, it's for all their bikes. This one, the Model X, which is again $14.99, so that's amazing. That's just a really cool thing because when you order this bike, this is like a lifetime bike pretty much, peeps, and you'll see more why this thing is going to last so long as we go through. But this thing is really built to last. It's built for the long run. Now, as far as frames, frame sizes, color, stuff like that goes, there's only one frame size for the Model C electric bike, and this is going to be this frame size right here. What you see is what you get. However, they do have a bunch of different color options. They've got stock color options to choose from, and they've also got a like a custom color picker that you can do for an extra, I think it's $399. Now, the stock color options for the Model C right here is going to be black, white, and red. But like I was saying, you know, if you do want to fork out an extra like $399, $400, something like that, you can pick pretty much any color under the sun, not just for the frame, but for the chain guard derailleur, the rims, basically like pretty much every piece of trim on this bike, all the different like little bits on here, you can change the color, so you can mix and match to make it really whatever you want, which is really cool. They've also got a lot of accessories for this bike. I got the saddlebags on here. These do not come stock, but the rear rack on this bike and the front basket, that does come stock. So we'll see the rear rack right here. That comes with the Model C, and then this front basket, this comes with the Model C as well. But there's a bunch of other accessories. We've also got the Suntour NCX seat post suspension, which is fantastic. Definitely recommend that. They sell that here at EBC for like $75, but you don't have to buy it there if you don't want to. $75 for that seat post is a pretty good deal, but you might be able to save a few bucks if you buy it off of Amazon or somewhere else. Just kind of a heads up for that piece right there. But that is a really good accessory to get, especially for this bike, which is, you know, no suspension, it's a hardtail. So having that seat post suspension, it really smooths out the ride and it makes it a lot more enjoyable, especially for longer distances. Some other cool stuff about this bike and all the bikes from EBC is all the pieces are individually sourced and picked out from overseas, and then they are shipped to EBC in Newport, California, and then these guys assemble these bikes in the shop. So they are pro-tuned before they get to you. And that's important because these guys, they spoke their own rims, they perfectly center their brakes, so there's no brake rub. They're just so nice and centered right out of the box. And it's also cool because these things ship pretty much 100% assembled right to your door. So when you get this bike in the box, all you have to do is twist up the handlebars, fill up the tires with air, and you're pretty much ready to ride. And if you want to see what it's like to unbox this bike, we'll go ahead and leave a link in the description so you can watch the IGTV video for the unboxing of this. But yeah, it's really easy to assemble. It just takes about 5 minutes, and they also include all the tools you need, so you don't need anything like that. And we talked about this with the Model X. We're gonna talk about it here again. The paint on these bikes is incredible, and there's a reason for that. Basically, Electric Bike Company takes a lot of pride and does a lot of effort to really ensure that the paint on these are immaculate. So these frames come unpainted to EBC, and then they throw on 3 coats of paint and then 2 coats of primer, and then they heat treat the entire thing so that it just increases the durability of the paint so it doesn't chip over time and it stays nice and glossy for just years and years to come. So I think this is a good example because this bike does have a couple hundred miles on it already. I mean, I polished it up a little bit, just kind of ran a rag over it, but hopefully you guys can still kind of see that it does shine in the sunlight. You know, I've hit a bunch of walls and stuff trying to get this in and out of the studio because it is a big bike. It's kind of unwieldy, but even still, this paint is hard to scratch. It's very, very thick and it's very, very durable. So really appreciate that. There's just a lot of cool stuff that EBC does, and we'll talk more about it. So let's dive in to the specs here. So starting in the back of the Model C right here, we've got this MX US internally geared hub motor with 500 watts of nominal power and 1200 watts of peak output power and 60 newton meters of torque. So 1200 watts of peak power is really powerful. This bike feels so powerful. When it brings the top speed up to this bike, I think out of the box, the top speed is 28 miles per hour with a pedal assist, and then I think it's 20 miles per hour with a throttle, but you can unlock the top speed to be like basically unlimited. We've gotten this bike up to about 32 miles per hour with a throttle only on flat ground, which is really, really fast. Of course, I was in like an aerodynamic position, but still, I mean, that's pretty fast for this motor. Now also with the peak power for this motor, like we talked about 1200 watts, normally with peak power, you know, motors can only sustain peak power for just a little bit, maybe a couple of seconds, maybe a minute or so, but then it has to drop back down to the nominal power. Now with this bike, or this motor, I guess, this motor is able to sustain that peak output of 1200 watts pretty much forever. I mean, I have never had this thing dip below about 1100 watts when I'm really asking for a lot of power for this motor. Even on steep, long hill climbs, it doesn't drop back down to the nominal output. And that's just incredible. So really, you know, EBC says this is a 500 watt motor. Really, this is like a 1000 watt motor with a 1200, 1300 watt peak output. So, you know, I guess it's just kind of how you want to call it, how you want to, you know, label the nomenclature for this, but basically what I'm trying to say is the motor here is extraordinarily powerful. It's a very good motor, and yeah, this brand MX US is good stuff. I really do like it. Now you'll see here, this is a single speed, right? No gearing on this, just one speed. Pedaling for this, it kind of, there's two different chain rings you can get for the rear cassette or the rear sprocket here. You can get a 16 tooth and an 18 tooth. You could probably get something custom if you wanted. These guys do a lot of cool stuff for customers. But the different chain rings, or the different chain rings here in the back, they basically change the, you know, the cadence for your max speed, right? So if I'm going 22 miles an hour, that's really about where I can top out for pedaling to really kind of contribute to the speed of this bike. So just something to keep in mind. However, if you do want to add a derailleur on this, this comes pre-drilled with derailleur bosses. It's kind of hard to see. You can see one of them right here, that one right there, this little guy. The saddlebags here are covering the rest, But basically, EBC has made it so that if you want to, you can add your own derailleur, and you can make this a multi-speed bike. So it's cool that they did that because it allows you to really do whatever you want with this bike. If you want it to stay a cruiser, fine. If you live in a super hilly area and you're like, nah, I need a derailleur, you can add that on too. Really do like that. Also, speaking of, kind of the philosophy of this bike, it does have a rear rack integrated into the frame, and it does have a basket that comes with the Model C. And that just means that I can stow a bunch of stuff on this bike. And it makes it a really cool cruiser, a really cool bike for going to the grocery store, just for getting stuff and stowing it in the bike, right? So I can throw it on top of the rack, I can throw it in the basket. And what's cool about the basket is this basket is, they've got like a custom headset here, and the basket is actually attached to the headset on the handlebars. So it's actually on the frame, not on the forks, which means that when I turn the handlebars here, the basket stays straight. And that's awesome because if I have a bunch of stuff in that basket, it's not gonna feel really heavy when I'm riding my bike. Very, very important feature right there. Also, this does have integrated lighting. You can see the front headlight right there, and you'll notice it is on the front of the basket, not, so basically it's not going to be obscured, or that beam is not gonna be obstructed by whatever's in the basket, another very important feature. And I think it has a rear light. Yeah, it's got a rear light built into the battery right there. Speaking of the battery on this, it's going to be a 48 volt, 11.6 amp hour battery. That's the stock configuration for that price point of $18.99. Now the battery is going to be located here in the back, which does make this a little bit back heavy, just a heads up. So remember on the Model X, if you guys watched that review, the battery is right there on the down tube, which does keep the weight a little bit more centered. But putting it back here does make it a little bit more back heavy, but it does also make it look a lot cleaner. So it's kind of just pros and cons there. 48 volt system, 11.6 amp hours, and it's gonna be a max range of about 50 to 60 miles or so, depending on how you ride this. But you can upgrade the battery to a 17.6 amp hour battery. That's what we have here. And the max range on that is a whopping 100 miles. That's what the company estimates. And honestly, I think that's a pretty fair estimate, especially if you are in a low pedal assist mode. We have, like I was saying, we've had this bike for a while now. We've done a lot of testing on this one in particular, and we frequently go on like 20, 30 mile rides. And after those rides, the battery indicator still reads full, or it'll kind of waver between 75% and 100%. I have never drained this battery. It just keeps going and keeps going. It's the Energizer Bunny electric bikes. Also, if you wanted to, if you just for whatever reason, if you're like, man, I need more than 100 miles, okay, fine. They've also got a battery basket as an upgrade that you can do, and it looks like the same basket right here, but in the bottom there's another, I think it's a 10.4 amp hour battery for another 40 miles or so of range, and that would just, how could you ever use that much battery? But hey man, it's there. So if you want, oh, by the way, the price point though, it is a pretty handsome fee if you want to upgrade that battery. I think it's $450 to go from the 11.6 to the 17.6 amp hour battery. So it's a lot of extra coin, but if you do need that extra range, they do have it. You'll see the saddlebags here. This is another upgrade option. These cost about $500. These are handmade leather saddlebags in Newport, kind of nearby the shop where these guys assemble these bikes in Newport, California. Very, very sweet saddlebags, also increases functionality. However, that's a lot of money. You could get a lot cheaper saddlebags off of Alibaba, or just wherever. They don't have to be real leather, and then you could also still put those saddlebags on this bike as well if you're trying to save some money. So just something to keep in mind here. But these saddlebags are pretty sweet. They're just really nice. Hand stitched, magnetic closures here. Just good stuff all around. They secure with these little pieces right here. It's attached to the frame. Yeah, it's really nice. Now the frame here for this is going to be 6061 hydroformed aluminum alloy, by the way. It's about 75 pounds for the curb weight on this, especially with that battery. It does increase the weight. This motor increases the weight. The front basket increases the weight. It's a pretty heavy bike, to be honest with you. And like I was saying earlier, it's unwieldy. It's kind of hard to get this thing through doorways. It's just a big bike. But I think the max load capacity in this is also 380 pounds, which is fantastic. And one of the reasons this thing can support so much weight, and one of the reasons why it's going to be so durable over time, is the frame itself. So typically on electric bikes, the frame is going to be about 1.5 millimeters thick. On these frames, it's going to be about 3 millimeters thick in most places. So that's double the thickness, anyways, it's double the thickness. And again, that's just going to add to the strength and durability of the frame and the bike over the years. Very, very cool. Also, speaking of durability and these components, the forks here are going to be steel forks, and the handlebars are steel as well. Now, why that's important is because steel has vibration dampening qualities, and it just helps to smooth out the ride when you're riding on roads like this, that are kind of like pebbly, not super smooth roads. It really reduces the noise and the vibration that you feel in your hands compared to like aluminum. Flip side of that is, yeah, it does add more weight, and that is what helps to contribute to that 75-pound curb weight. So, there's always pros and cons to each stuff here. Also, I did want to mention one other pretty cool accessory that they have here. They have these like really nice wood, again, handmade locally, like wood chain guard covers and fenders, which they look beautiful. Not really my style, so I didn't get those, but they are amazing. And if you are looking for more of the traditional beach cruiser look, if you can grab those, throw that on there. I think that's another couple $100 though for those custom wood pieces. They have like a surfboard rack that you can put on there and throw your surfboard on kind of like on the side of the bike. They've just got a lot of accessories. You have to check out the website to see all the stuff they offer, but there's a lot of accessories and kind of ways to customize this bike to make it your own. One more thing I want to talk about is just the frame and this bike overall before we kind of go a little more into the specs is a lot of these components are steel and they're sealed. So like the head gasket and the dropout, there's steel components there, and they're also sealed, which means that no moisture is going to get into that, which is fantastic because again, this is a beach cruiser. This is made to ride in the beach, and beaches have a lot of salt in the air. It makes metal rust over time. And especially in kind of the head gasket and the dropout, if it's not sealed, that air is going to seep into there, and that water and that moisture and that salt, and it's going to corrode and get it kind of like crusty and just gross and not work very well over time. That's not going to be an issue on this bike, and that's just another one of those things where you wouldn't really know it unless you kind of looked into it, but it's just something that EBC offers simply because they want to give you pretty much the best product they can. And speaking to that, we talked about how they spoke their own tires, or their own wheels, which is really, really cool. Also, the rims on these are going to be a little bit different than probably most of the rims that we're going to see on electric bikes. These are custom double-walled, extra thick rims. That's just going to also help to increase durability overall, especially on this bike where it goes so fast. So whenever you hit a little bump, the stress that you're putting on the wheels and the rim is going to be substantially higher than an analog bike that's going to be going much slower. So you're going to want, and it's also pretty heavy, 75 pounds, plus if you're loading it up with gear in the front basket, if you're loading it up with gear on, in the saddlebags, on the rear rack, whatever, like that's a lot of weight for the rims to handle. So it's good that they are, custom spoking their tires, their wheels, and then also having these custom rims. Braking power on this is also phenomenal. We talked about how, since they do build these in-house, these brakes are perfectly centered out of the box, which is awesome because that's one of the things that's so frustrating. Brake rub is just like, it's so annoying and it's the worst. Now these are going to be what are these Tektro Ariga hydraulic disc brakes, 180 millimeter rotors in the front and the rear here. I think on the new model, it's Tektro Dorado hydraulic disc brakes, so it's going to be a few little changes here from this bike to the new one, but most of the stuff is going to be the same here. And the braking power on these, they're dual piston, by the way. Braking power is it's perfect. It's exactly what I want for a bike that goes this fast. 30 miles per hour, I want more than enough stopping power, and those brakes give it to me. Now, because they're hydraulic disc brakes, it does mean I can adjust the brake levers here as far as the position of the brake levers go. So I can adjust these so the natural resting position of the brake levers is a little bit more in if I have smaller hands, or if I have a shorter reach in my hands, or I can let them out more like here if I have bigger hands or whatever. Just there's options that I can do with the brake levers. Also, these brake levers have motor inhibitors built in. So whenever I depress those brake levers, it's going to instantly cut power to the motor, which is awesome. It's a good safety feature. It ensures that I have the shortest possible stopping distance. That's particularly important for this bike right here because it does have a cadence sensor, which is my biggest and probably my only gripe with this bike is it does still have a cadence sensor. And you can see the magnets right there. So cadence sensors, they've got kind of a start and stop delay from the time that I start and stop pedaling to the time the motor actually starts and stops kicking out power. And that's just the nature of, that's just how cadence sensors work. This one has a higher resolution. It's a 12 magnet cadence sensor, so it's a little bit higher resolution than like a 6 magnet or 8 magnet, whatever, but still there is a delay. So that's why it's important that these brake levers have motor inhibitors built in, because if I'm pedaling and I stop pedaling and I need to make like an emergency stop, the motor might still be engaged, but as soon as I hit the brake levers to initiate a stop, it's gonna cut power even if it's engaged. So really important stuff, again, especially for this bike. Pedals here, I think these are gonna be, these are gonna be Wellgo pedals. Nothing super fancy about these. They are nice pedals though. They're just flat, kind of rubberized with these little ridges on the top. They offer pretty good traction, so I do like that. Also, back to the pedals real quick and the forks here. You'll notice that the forks kind of sweep forward just a little bit. That helps it widens the stance of the bike. It makes it more stable, it increases the wheelbase, and it also pushes that wheel just a little bit forward of the cranks, which means that the wheel is gonna more easily clear the front of my foot when I'm pedaling and turning, right? Because for people with bigger feet like me, with forks that go straight down, right? It's a little bit easier to kind of clip that front tire when you're turning. And I'm sure a lot of you peeps know exactly what I'm talking about. It's no fun, and it can also kind of lead to an accident. So you do not want that. Kind of a small feature here, but the kickstand is pretty dope. I like how it extends really far outwards instead of just kind of more straight down. You'll see I got these nice little wood pieces here to help center the bike. These do not come with the bike, but the kickstand here, it's got kind of a nice wide angle, and it just makes it really stable when the kickstand is deployed. I've had bikes fall over in high winds when the kickstands are more just kind of straight down. So small thing, but wanted to point it out. Trying to think what else we can talk about here. The tires on this bike, these are gonna be Maxxis Gypsy tires. I think they're 26 inch by, what are they, 2.1, I believe. They've got puncture protection in these. They're good tires. These are good tires here. I think you can also upgrade them to something even better on their website if you want, but honestly, these tires are more than fine. I don't think you need to upgrade those. Let's see. So the saddle and the grips on this are gonna be made from real leather, and they're really good quality. The saddle here is fantastic, really good quality stuff. Nice stitching on this. It's branded with their logos, good stuff. It's also got bumpers underneath to give it a little bit of suspension. So when you got the bumpers there and that seat post suspension, it's a pretty cush ride. Also, same thing with these grips. Leather grips right here. Nice stitching on the bottom. Right, check that out, gotta love that. They also are locking. We've got lockers right here on this side and that side. Just helps to make sure these things don't twist, while I'm riding. Oh, the battery, you know what? One thing I forgot about the battery. So this is locking and removable, by the way. I can take this battery out just by putting the key in there, pretty easy stuff. Put the key in, turn it, pull the battery out. However, something that's very cool about this battery, I'm gonna set this down real quick. All right, check this out. The charging cord is built in to the battery. So the charging cord is right there. You've always got the charger with you on this bike. It extends pretty far, kind of like a vacuum cord, you like that. And then to bring it back in, you just kind of give it one little tug and then it'll slowly feed back in. This is one thing too, is kind of really the only thing I think is degraded a little bit over time is just the retraction of this cord is not as good as it was when I first got it. Not a big deal, it just takes a little bit extra effort to get it back in and close it up. Maybe a few extra seconds, but I'm just trying to point everything out here for you guys. Now to the display on this, I think this is gonna be another point that's a little bit different than this older model here compared to the newer ones. This is a grayscale LED screen here. This is a really good screen, I really like it. It's EBC branded, but I think this is actually a Bafang display. Independent button pad right here, right there on the left. But it's got all the necessary information that you need. It's easy to read in direct sunlight, and it's a good display. So you'll see you've got the battery indicator right here on the top, 4-bar battery indicator. Not, you know, it would be nicer if it was percentage or maybe like a 10-bar battery indicator. It's just you don't really get a very precise reading from this. Not a big deal, but whatever. Time I've ridden, what level of pedal assist mode I'm in. It goes from 0 all the way up to 5. Whenever I turn this bike back on, it's gonna reset to pedal assist level 1, so you'll see it'll turn it off, turn it back on. It's just gonna reset to 1. That's the one other thing I would like to see change. It'd be nice if this remembered my last setting, so when I turn it back on, it stays in that setting. Also, when it comes to life every time, the pedal assist is not naturally on, so I have to turn the pedal assist on by holding down, and you'll see the little flash right there, and then assist is now on. Also, the lights are off from the get-go, so I gotta hold the up arrow, and you'll see the lights now turn on. I'll show you those real quick when they are on. There's the front headlight. And the rear light. This headlight is actually pretty good, by the way. It's the same one, I believe, the same LEDs that was on the Model X that we just reviewed. I think it's the same one on all of their bikes, actually. But it's a good headlight. It's got a good throw. It's got a good spill. The beam pattern is pretty nice, and it's bright enough to actually illuminate your path while you're riding at night. At slower speeds, though, I mean, I wouldn't go a full 30 miles per hour with this. If you are planning on riding at night a lot, though, I would still probably recommend getting an aftermarket light, throwing it on the handlebars here, on your helmet, whatever. And if you want, you can actually use the USB Type A port. Where is it? Yeah, it's right here on the display to power something. So it's this little piece right here, USB Type A. That's kind of nice. Now, probably my favorite thing about this display is on the right-hand side right here, you can see the wattage output, and that's how you can see exactly how much power the motor is delivering. And this is what I'm talking about, where, you know, it says it's a 500 watt nominal motor with 1200 watts of peak power, but if I'm going up a long hill climb, this thing will stay at 1100, 1200 watts the entire way, and it never dips down, which is, again, it's just really incredible. I think this is the tripometer, current temperature. If you hit the power button, just a quick tap, it'll switch to average speed, odometer, max speed, voltage. And then this is how you really want to see how much juice is left in the battery, is from the voltage. This is a better and more precise way to see how much mileage you have left compared to the battery. Just a little heads up there for that. Hit it again, and it goes back to the tripometer. So this is a backlit display. When I turn the lights on, it's going to have a little light that illuminates this so you can see it at night. It's not adjustable, you can't really move it, but you can see it in direct sunlight, so it's not that big of a deal. Again though, I think the new one is going to be a color LCD or LED display, so that's kind of cool. Also, this little phone holder right here, you would think that it's not that big of a deal. You can get this from EBC, you can get really any phone holder, but it makes a difference. Like, I actually really like throwing my phone in there when I ride. If I get a text or an email, I can just glance at it, see what's going on. Kind of cool. On the other side of the display here, I just want to go back to this right here. The wire management on these bikes is the best I've ever seen. It's really how it should be done. You'll see you got this kind of heat shrink wrap right here to really kind of make things nice and snug, nice and secure. And you'll see that these cables are kind of like a nylon threaded kind of sheath right here. Sorry, this camera's having a hard time focusing. Come on, buddy, you can do it. There we go. Nice little like nylon sheath. Just really, really clean wire management. It all feeds down really nicely right into the that bracket that we're talking about. The head gasket, whatever this thing is called. This piece right here, guys, you know what I'm talking about. It goes into this, and then it feeds a little bit into the down tube, and it makes her a pretty clean look overall. You know what I'm saying? Pretty clean. Dig it. So look, awesome peeps, I think we have covered just about everything that we can for the electric bike company, the EBC Model C OG Beach Cruiser electric bike. Man, this is a sweet, sweet bike, dudes and gals. You're gonna like this if you get it. We've had a lot of fun. This is the bike that typically we take out to ride whenever it's just, you know, if we're just cruising, if we're not actually reviewing something. This is the bike that we typically choose to go for a ride because it's just so comfortable, it's so fun, it's so powerful, and there's just no range anxiety at all. I mean, I've never gotten this battery below half. There's just no range anxiety, so it's really, really cool. But look, I think the next thing to do now is take this for a quick test ride and show you this bike in action. So here we go. All right, awesome peeps. That is pretty much it for the review of the Electric Bike Company Model C electric bike right here in summer. This thing starts for $18.99, which is awesome because it's about 500 bucks less than it was about a year ago, which is just incredible that the prices are going down instead of up, especially with the tariffs. So like we talked about, that's just really cool. So look, this thing is one of the most powerful electric bikes that we have tested. That 1200 watt peak power like we talk about with the MX US internally geared hub motor it's able to keep and sustain that peak output for just pretty much forever. I mean, this thing, it never dips down below like 1,000 watts, 1,100 watts. So cool. With the upgraded 17.6 amp hour battery, that ridiculous 100-mile range, tons of accessories for this, the saddlebags, you can get different color options, you can do pretty much anything you want to. You can pick and choose which colors you want to do each part, so it's very cool. You can customize it, make it your own. Now, like we talked about, this is going to be geared more towards cruisers, people who just want to kind of chill, have a lot of open area to ride in, because this is a big bike. It's kind of unwieldy. It's got really wide handlebars, so going in an urban setting, trying to go through cars, you know, up and down sidewalks, stuff like that, it's not going to be ideal for that, but it can still be a commuter if you want it to be, because it does have that super long range. And if you don't like the single speed, if you've got like, you know, your own derailleur, if you want to throw a derailleur on there, again, it does come pre-drilled with derailleur bosses, so functionality in this bike is just incredibly, incredibly high. So look, I hope you have an awesome day, awesome peeps. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.